Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome to another Basement Radio Arcade podcast of the BRAP rant, back-to-back rants. We did a rant yesterday, myself and Game Logic. Please check out that rant. Great rant. We talked about our exclusives, anti-consumer, things of that nature, because that's been a talking point going around right now on the internets. And it's really weird. Well, first of all, please do me a favor. Smash that like button. Helps out the channel. If you're new, subscribe. Hit the bell notification so you're alerted when we go live. The point of this podcast, really, this rant, we're going to have a heart-to-heart here because I've hit a point where, and one of the things, if you've been following BRAP for the last almost decade or so that we've been podcasting on this show, hey, Ice Queen Gaming, we aren't like other podcasts. We never have been. We are first and foremost gamers. We don't do the gaming politics on the internet like you see on Twitter. We don't align ourselves with a community that's, and we don't create friendships that are based on brand loyalty, that are conditional on that brand loyalty. We don't do that. We never have. We are a gaming centric podcast first and foremost. We always have been. And so if that's the kind of content that you're looking for, if you're looking for content that's a little more nuanced, has more nuance, has conversation that's a bit more nuanced, that's applies some critical thought analysis that often references data points, trends that we're seeing in the gaming industry, you've come to the right place. If you're looking for a show that's going to pom-pom PlayStation, Nintendo, or Xbox, that's not this show at all. Never has been. But we're going to have a heart-to-heart here because it's interesting. I think, look, YouTube, for all of the great things that it's done in terms of giving creators a voice that may have not had the opportunity to have a voice, has also given the opportunity to people to have a voice that probably shouldn't have a voice. And I know what you're saying, BRAP, that sounds like censorship. That sounds like communism. But look, the democratization of information, of voices, hasn't been a net positive. And it's about time as gamers that we start demanding better from content creators. And how do you do that? Well, I don't know. You don't support the content creators that push out misinformation, disinformation. And those podcasts, those content creators they're not hard to identify. Just listen to how they speak about certain subject matters, like exclusives somehow lead to consumers having no choice, which isn't true, because at the end of the day, as a consumer, you still have a choice to either buy the platform that the exclusive is on or not buy it at all. Or if it forces you to buy expensive games, you have the choice to either buy that game at its retail price, or you could wait for a sale. Or you can wait for it. You could do other things. There's choices. You could rent the game via GameFly. You can head down to your local GameSpot. Hopefully that GameSpot is in Forte's neighborhood. You can go down and see Forte. You could trade in a bunch of games and purchase that AAA game via store credit. If game is too expensive for you, there's other options for you to engage with the medium. There's AA games, there's indie games, there are subscription services. There are options, and to imply that there are no options to consumers in the gaming industry is disingenuous at best. And I'm seeing it from content creators, and I'm mostly seeing it from the Xbox content creators. And I'm going to pick on some of them, not all Xbox content creators, because there are some good ones out there. But the ones that are out here saying that, exclusives are anti-consumer, again, with that narrative, because their platform of choice has decided to put their first-party exclusives on rival platforms, which they told you they were going to do, by the way. You know, and the infighting amongst that community now. I've become aware there's some kind of civil war. Why? I don't know. It's ridiculous. This is video games. There should be no civil war. There should be discussion around the the enjoyment of the entertainment media that we all love and enjoy. But what some individuals in that community have done, they profiteered off of people's misery. They've done nothing more than to farm engagement for their own personal benefit, financial benefit, I might add. So we're going to have a heart-to-heart about it, because it's about time that we take back the narrative, that we take back the conversation, that we steer the conversation in a direction that is positive, that is insightful, that provides nuance. Because that's what consumers deserve. That's what gamers, that's what people who love this industry, who love gaming, deserve. Not this other stuff. Not the misinformation, disinformation. Not the conspiracy theories. Not the constant acquiescing to what a corporation tells you you should do, or what your viewpoints of the industry should be based on what they do. And understand that corporation is not in the same seat or position as the other two. We're going to talk about that, because that gets missed in the conversation. The conversation is such more nuanced than what people give it credit. It's frustrating because it leads to a lot of the misinformation, disinformation, leads to a lot of the infighting that we see, a lot of the conversation points that we see about anti-consumer this and anti-consumer that. You have no choice. You have a choice. You have a choice. You have a choice. No one's taking that choice away from you. Don't believe the engagement merchants that are telling you this stuff. I just had this conversation on Twitter with someone. This individual's like, well, exclusivity is anti-consumer. How's it anti-consumer? Exclusivity isn't taking the choice away from consumer. You have a choice to buy or don't buy. But we got to stop giving eyeballs to some of these content creators that just push out misinformation, disinformation, that whine about the gaming media. Oh, the gaming media treats my platform so bad. Oh. And how does that lessen your enjoyment of the platform you enjoy? And look, while I don't disagree that the gaming media is kind of blurring the lines between tabloid media now, or that it's blurring the line between content creators, solely putting the blame and hyper-focusing on the media over how your platform of choice is struggling and creating taglines like tax is the most ridiculous and absurd thing I've ever heard. And with any consumer product, it is downright ridiculous. It's immature. It isn't the truth. It just dumbs down the conversation. We deserve better. You deserve better. Why do we give these individuals who either don't love video games, who don't understand the industry they claim they love, who aren't students in the industry, why do we give these voices, these platforms? I don't understand. And what we're seeing is a race to the bottom. A race to the bottom of information where there's a lack of quality, a lack of nuance around the conversation in gaming from content creators. It's frustrating for me because I want to go and I want to watch content creators who understand the industry. And I understand that not everyone is a software developer, or not everyone is an executive at a publisher or works at PlayStation, Nintendo, or Xbox. I understand that. But there are some people that do their homework, do their research, do their due diligence, and have intelligent conversations. That's what we should be demanding. Not the pom-pomming and, oh my God, yeah, Phil Spencer's the devil and PlayStation is going downhill. Yeah. That's not what we should be asking for. We deserve better. You deserve better. And at this point, I feel like I'm cutting a promo on WWE, but you get my point. It's so tiresome. I've been doing podcasting for 9 years. And I can tell you that a lot of the relationships amongst content creators is based on whether or not they toe the line for a specific platform. Because I can tell you, when we on Basement Radio Arcade Podcast, BRAP, which goes live every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, when we were out there discussing some of the things that Xbox was going to do, that they may eventually pivot and start putting their games elsewhere, because we understood that Microsoft's core competency as a business is software as a service and providing software to wherever the consumer is, not bringing the consumers to the platform to sell them software, rather bringing their software to whatever platform they can and then selling the consumer their software. That is Microsoft's core competency. And Xbox has kind of been the outlier per se. And we listened to the word tracks. We saw how the word tracks would change. We saw how the behaviors would change, seemingly year to year, whatever Phil Spencer decided he wanted to change, or Xbox leadership wanted to change. And we talked about those things. And because we brought those things up, we were shunned at times. What's up, Forte?
You were here feeling good today.
Oh, because you know what, Forte, we
two rants in a row. What's really going on?
Let me just say something else.
We going after everybody today?
No, we're not. We're not going after everybody. But my point is, you know what, Forte, go listen. You guys need to listen to DPS every Thursday night.
Well,
you want to hear about two? No, wait, hold on.
I disagree with you.
You want to listen to two individuals who are passionate about video games, who love video games, who are out here talking off their rear ends, making up stuff, emotional, blaming the media, aren't wearing their R&B leather coat, singing "I'm Emotional" by Carl Thomas, discussing the games that they're playing, discussing some of the nuances of the games they're playing, what worked, what hasn't worked, having good conversations. Go check them out. DPS, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, Thursday nights. Go ahead, Forte. How are you, man?
No, I'm good, man. I appreciate it. It's a little frustrating, especially when you sit there and you listen to some of the stuff that people say. The biggest thing is I try not to have a real issue with people's opinions and stuff. I just think that people's opinions can be misconstrued, especially when it comes to them sharing it in a public forum. It's like, because a lot of people don't know how to have their own thoughts or their own opinions. They like to pair it with other people think. And it's like when you use your platform to kind of weaponize for a particular platform.
I meant DPS.
You did say DS. You did say DSP.
I meant DPS. I stand corrected. Sorry about that. Okay.
I thought you was giving a wrestling. I thought you was doing a wrestling front. I thought you were talking about Diamond Dallas Page or something for a second.
Yeah, right.
DDP. Yeah, exactly. DDP. Customer in the store did DDP. But I think that's the biggest thing for me. A person can. So the thing is, like, everybody has their preferred platform, but the difference is how you go about talking and interacting and either defending or trying to come up with a reason to like be upset at your preferred platform. Like mine's is always going to be Xbox, because they kind of impressed on me a long time ago with the ecosystem, the games and stuff like that. And you don't just walk away from that. But I'm never going to downplay what they do wrong, and I'm not going to oversell what they do right. I'm just going to be like, hey, if it's good, it's good. If it's bad, it's bad. You always want to be balanced in that criticism. But also I do think this though, it's kind of on the people that are watching these people to kind of tell them by their view counts or by their overall engagement that, if they feel like this isn't it, don't watch them. Because they do it because they have a loyal following of people that just want to hear everything is great, or they want to hear everything is terrible. It's never nothing right in the middle. It's never a situation where you can be balancing your criticisms and stuff. Or I take that back. You can be, but that's the hard way to grow. When you're kind of, either very, very, against the grain and you're saying everything's bad, you get a lot of people that want to support that. You get a lot of people that want to support when everything's good. But this is why I always talk about when up into this last console generation, anything that happened great, people talked about it. But when it was terrible, unless it was something that the whole internet was upset about, like Xbox doing the Xbox Live thing, PlayStation raising prices, or things like that, then everybody talked about that. But if it was something that was just small that people really didn't care about, but it was still a negative, they just wouldn't cover it because they knew they didn't want their, you know, their fans or the people that support them to like think that they're shilling and stuff like that, or oh, how dare you talk bad about the brand. So I think it's a little bit of both. Content creators feel like they're in a bubble where they have to do stuff like that, but it's also because the fans, they support it, and that's the bad thing about it.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree, Forte. By the way, I gave your store a plug. I told people, look, you have choices. Yeah, look, and this is what's frustrating about the conversation is this idea that consumers don't have any choice when it comes to AAA games, or that people always only hearken on focus on the fact that AAA games when they release are $70. Well, guess what? They are $70. But guess what? You also don't have to pay $70. You can wait for those games to go on sale. Forte, how many people do you see in your store that wait for those games to go on sale? Or decide, you know what, I'm going to trade in a couple games. I'm going to get my store credit, apply that store credit for the $70 game that I want. You there, Forte? I think did we lose him? No, maybe we lost Forte. Forte's, okay, he's muted his mic. I think Forte's at work, so we'll get back to him in a second. So that's my point. Like the false narratives, this dogmatic viewpoint, and this idea that consumers just don't have any choice. And the matter, that's just not true. Like, we got to remember, the consumers always have choice. I always see people say, oh, these companies are forcing $70 down your throat. No, they're not forcing you. You still have a choice not to buy. You have a choice to buy AA games. You have a choice to buy indies. And if you don't want, what people don't realize too, with the conversation around AA game, AAA games, oh, they're not sustainable, they're not this, they're not that. If they really weren't sustainable, truly not sustainable, companies wouldn't make them. Publishers, developers wouldn't allocate resources to make AAA games if there was no demand signal from the marketplace. But there is. And if you don't believe me, just look at the latest Circana NPD numbers for January. Majority of the top 20 games were AAA games. Call of Duty coming in at number 1. Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League came in, I think it was number 2. You know what's interesting? Speaking of $70 games, I wasn't aware that Madden 24 retailed for $70 on the PlayStation 4. Same price point as the next-gen version of the game on the PS5. Mario Heat says consumers dictate market buying, not buying. Simple. Yeah, Mario Heat, you're spot on. But that conversation isn't happening, and it's frustrating. Do better, content creators that are pushing out misinformation, disinformation. Stop doing that. Sorry, I'm reading some of the DMs here. You know, the other thing that came to my attention today was a content creator begging the question. And this is when I say that we need to ask better from our content creators, and why the democratization of information of voices hasn't had a net positive effect in content creation, and has led to a lot of misinformation, disinformation out there. So there was a content creator, an Xbox content creator, who's asking the question, gaming media says Xbox exclusive should be on all platforms. But the same isn't said about PlayStation, Nintendo. Why? The simple answer to that question, if you are a student of the game, if you're a student of the gaming industry, if you truly love gaming, you would take the time to answer that question yourself. Instead of trying to get everybody lathered up, everyone riled up and upset over this false narrative that you created, and you claim to be a gamer who loves gaming, Why do you think this is the case? Oh, I don't know. Call me crazy. Maybe because of the voice track from the C-suite at Xbox. Going back to this summer where Tim Stewart specifically said, hey, you know what? We're going to pivot. There's going to be a change. Rival platforms, we're going to start putting our games there. They telegraphed. They told you this. Now it appears Sea of Thieves has been in development for about a year, the PlayStation 5 version, which means that if that game was in development for the last year or so, that this decision was made prior to the Xbox town hall or business event. If the media, and there's a reason why the media is not saying that Sony games should be on exclusives, because of one simple reason. And Nintendo, I should add. Because they are not in the same spot as Xbox. They're not in the same place as Xbox. That should be patently obvious to everyone. If you look at the hardware sales, if you look at the market share of Xbox and Nintendo, PlayStation, Nintendo, Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo are not in the same position as Microsoft or the Xbox specifically. They're just not. And therefore, they're going to do things differently and make decisions differently than what Xbox is going to because of their position in the marketplace. Vastly, they are different levels. As Dr.
What you was asking me, bro? I heard you ask me something, yes. But I was in the middle of selling a post 3D headset to somebody because they were playing Helldivers 2. His friend had just bought it for him digitally. And he was like, yeah, I'm trying to get him some headphones because he just had a kid. So I was like, oh, yeah, we need to get you in because my man said he is already level 48 in the game. He said he's been playing every day for 3 hours a day for 2 weeks.
Oh, wow, man. He's grinding then.
Man, that's what I said, dude. 48?
Yeah.
Every day.
I'm only like level 9. I played about 2 hours last night. Finally got some co-op. So,
Yeah. So, yeah, I got to jump. I'm gonna jump in either tonight or tomorrow because I refused to jump back in until the servers were fixed. So tomorrow I'm off. So I'm gonna jump back in tomorrow and start the grind.
Yeah.
But what was that? What were you asking?
I was gonna say the servers are really good right now. I had no issue getting.
I heard 700,000 people is the max right now you can get up to, which is more than they actually need at this point, unless they have a really, really big boost again over the course of this week.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, like I said, I had no trouble getting in. I got in right away, which was not the case last weekend. But no, I was asking you, Forte, this I was having a conversation with someone about somebody replied to me about the whole exclusivity being anti-consumer. And I said, and the whole conversation around $70 games, and everyone always focuses on the price point of $70 games, but the conversation is never around, well, you have choices still. Even with that $70 price point, you could wait for the game to go on sale, or you could go down to your local GameStop, see Forte, and
yes, sir.
You could trade your game in, or you can go see Forte when that game goes on sale. I mean, so my question was, do you see people doing that, Forte? You know what, I'm going to wait for this game to come on sale, or do they come in and they trade software, use that store credit to buy that $70 game they want?
I mean, I've seen people do both. Well, not. I mean, I've seen people do all manners of everything. People say it's a game that's on a particular platform that they don't have. They'll just, wait for that game to come out. I see it, which is probably the majority of them. If people see a game on another platform that they want, they'll just, do what normal people do, go out and buy the platform if they really want to play the game. Because this is the thing. there's like and I think the reason people say the things that they say around exclusivity, basically gatekeeps and stuff like that, and I'm like, okay, but it's not really the fact that you should be really talking about the exclusivity of the system in the game. The game should be the reason that you want to get the platform you want to get it on. I always tell people the main reason you want to buy the main reason you should want to buy a console, if you're an online player, you want to play where the majority of the people that you like to play games with is, where your friends play at. If you're a person that plays predominantly by yourself, okay, what other games speak to you in a matter of what you think you're going to play? Do you think you're going to like a game like God of War? Do you think you like a game like Halo? Let those be the things that kind of bridge your, kind of get you through whatever you need to get through when it comes to that decision. But like I said, last year, I had people that had PlayStation 5s already, but they couldn't play Starfield. What did they do? Come into the store and buy an Xbox Series S so they can play Starfield.
Because that's what consumers do when they want something. They buy it. They buy it. You there, Forte? Did we lose you again? Oh, you're still there. Okay. Oh, did you put me on mute? Forte, you there? Maybe Forte is on mute.
Yeah, you heard me?
Yeah, I heard you now. Are you back?
Yeah. I got it muted me for some reason. But no, I think that's the biggest thing for me. It's like it shouldn't be about the system that it's on. It should be about the game that you want to play. If there's a game that's on a particular platform that you don't own, find a way to play the game. If you have the means, find a way of playing it, or it's just a game you miss out on. Because everybody can't afford everything, and I definitely understand that. But it just comes down to if I want to play Helldivers and I don't have a PlayStation or a PC, I'm going to find, we find a way to get the weirdest things that we want. People find a way to spend $300 on a pair of shoes or, go out to eat every day of the week. They find different reasons of doing the things they want to do. So I never find the conversation to be, that it's gatekeeping you from playing what you want. It's just a simple fact that it's available for you, but can you get it? If you can get it, then get it. that's kind of what it always comes down. That's why I own everything,
Look,
even if it's for even if it's for God of War. I have a PlayStation for God of War. Now I take advantage of some of the first party games they come out over there, but I literally bought a PlayStation for God of War because it was worth it to me. Now, is it worth it to somebody else? No, but I also think these are people that are going out of their way to talk down about exclusivities because those are systems or games that they never were going to play in the first place. So it's easy for them to have a dissenting opinion that goes against everybody else.
Yeah, Forte, the thing about video games and exclusivity too is you're not entitled to have these games. Like there's no entitlement here. And people are running with this like they're entitled to have everything on whatever platform they choose. Like you've made a choice. And so you're tied to that choice now. It doesn't mean that you're entitled to everything else because you made a different choice. That's not how, many times in life, that's not how life works. You're not owed anything per se. But this sense of entitlement is just odd to me because and that's part of what's, I think, driving some of this conversation. Well, I deserve the game. It's like, no, you don't. And, like if you can't afford it, then, that's a choice you need to make as a consumer. Do I save up more money or do I just go take my money elsewhere and support another game? I mean, there's a choice like, I'm not entitled to a Mercedes-Benz. I'm not entitled to a Lamborghini. In gaming, people forget gaming is not a necessity per se. It's a luxury product. Gaming is a very expensive hobby. The entry point is $500 for console gaming. But if that's a high price point for you, there are other options. You can play mobile gaming. You could play games on your tablets. You could play games through Xfinity on a remote. There are cloud options that you could look into. Console isn't the only avenue to enjoy video games. These are just choices that you have to make as an adult. And we make every day as adults. You're not entitled to everything. You're not entitled to luxury goods. I know it's going to rub people the wrong way, but that's just the fact of the matter. Forte, someone wants to know how far your store is from the Rochester area. Very far. Forte's not even remotely close.
I am.
You're far,
roughly, what, 15, 20 minutes?
From Rochester?
I was talking to someone.
Oh.
Yeah, 15, 20 minutes from from the Rochester store. Yeah,
I thought you were Rochester, New York.
Road. Oh, Rochester, New York.
No, he's saying here in Michigan. He's saying here in Michigan, so he's right.
Yeah, Rochester Road is on Rochester Road and 59s, and we're about 10, 15 minutes from there.
Yeah. And this idea of exclusivity too, Forte, we have exclusivity in almost on a variety of different types of consumer products. And I'll make this simple. McDonald's has exclusives. Can't buy the Big Mac at Burger King. We're not shouting at McDonald's to put the Burger King on to put the Big Mac on Burger King's menu. We're not doing that. One of my favorite analogies that Game Logic used recently was, we're not asking Coca-Cola to unlock the secret formula to Coke so that Pepsi can use it. We don't do that. We don't do that. You know, we don't yell at Nike for having an exclusivity deal with Michael Jordan and the Air Jordan line. We don't yell at them to put that Air Jordan line. We don't yell at Nike to bring that to Reebok or to New Balance. We don't do that. There's a reason why Nike has a deal with Michael Jordan, why Nike has exclusivity deals with LeBron James. They want to drive consumers to buy Nikes. We don't have issues with that. We don't yell at Nike for reselling $200 pair of Air Jordans that came out 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Although I do a little bit because I'm like, why are these shoes $220? Like Forte, I was looking at the shoes you got. I'm like, I'm not buying them. I love the shoes you got, though. Your Air Jordans are nice. I just don't understand when console exclusivity became an issue. We talked about this, growing up. We always bought platforms based on exclusivity. We wanted a specific game. We wanted to play Mario. We bought a Nintendo Switch. Nintendo. We wanted to play Golden Axe or Sonic the Hedgehog. We went out and bought a Sega Master System or Sega Genesis. Gregor Von Doom says the ice cream machine always being broken is anti-consumer, though. I don't disagree, Gregor Von Doom. My local McDonald's, their ice cream machine is always down, especially during the spring, summertime seasons. You know whose machine isn't down? Chick-fil-A across the street. And Chick-fil-A is not open on Sundays, though. Yeah, Alexander Murr says, you want blood on Mortal Kombat? Buy the Sega version. We weren't yelling at Nintendo for not having blood. So again, these companies, they put out exclusives to attract consumers to their platform. This brings me back to people trying to equate PlayStation's situation with Xbox's situation. They are two vastly different positions in the marketplace in console gaming. They just are. Right now, the PlayStation and Nintendo Switch are the dominant brands in gaming. The Xbox is in third place. The Xbox has a very small market share in the console space. I believe Game Logic was going to join us this afternoon, but he can't make it. But Game Logic on this show has said, based on the numbers he's put together, the Xbox is about 10% of the console market, console space. They have 10% of the base there. So think about that. They're in vastly different positions. They are going to make different decisions. They're going to incorporate different strategies based on where they sit in the market. Something I said earlier today, just a little food for thought. I was at a meeting today, and this came up, and in my tweet, I said, companies are often motivated by different things. For some, this could be in the form of increasing their own market share. For others, it could be maximizing profits. Companies don't always view things in the same lens, and this is so true. This is going to apply to Nintendo. This is going to apply to PlayStation. This is going to apply to Xbox. PlayStation doesn't have the issues of attracting consumers to their platform the way Xbox does, and neither does Nintendo. This is why the Xbox has pivoted. This is why they're trying to bring their games to other platforms, because they can't sell games on their current platform because they can't sell enough hardware. It is that simple. These companies are not on equal footing in terms of market share, in terms of install base, in terms of the number of consumers that they can sell software to. And this is, when I talk about the nuance that's not given in this conversation, this is an example of that. And it isn't a console warring talking point. It's a talking point based on where each company sits in their respective market in console gaming. And what companies do when they're not successful and they can't claw market share away from their competitors, they often pivot, or sometimes they leave. Xbox isn't leaving, which is good. Frankly, I want Xbox to compete more in the console space. I don't think that's going to be the case, because competition within the console space is better for consumers. It drives innovation. It drives quality. It helps maintain pricing that isn't tipped solely in the favor of the manufacturer. Ryan Landis says, BRAP, these young gamers don't know the history of Sega, what they had to do. Sega. All right, hopefully Forte jumps back on. He did have to leave, but I want to thank Forte for jumping on. I know he's at work right now, so I appreciate it, Forte. These companies are in vastly different positions in the marketplace. You can't compare them. The only similarity that these companies have, Nintendo, PlayStation, and Xbox, is that they compete in the console space. And even within that console space, there's market stratification. You see that between PlayStation and Nintendo. They cater to different consumers who have different wants, who have a different set of checkboxes they want from a consumer product. These are the kinds of conversations we should be hearing more from content creators, instead of the emotional conspiracy theory, diarrhea type conversation that we hear often. It should be more nuanced. It should be breaking down how each competitor is competing in the space and how their footing in the space influences their decisions that they make. Because we see this everywhere with other consumer products and other companies. If you work for a company and your company's not attaining or not meeting a specific goal, they make changes. This narrative that's going out now, the industry's changing. Yeah, it's been changes we talked about this yesterday on BRAP. Again, this is where the nuance comes into play. This is where, like, hey, let's look back. Let's look at how the industry's changed. Let's understand at the very basic minimum the fact that gaming is a technology business. And as Logic said yesterday on our BRAP, technology changes yearly. And so these changes that are coming down the pipeline aren't necessarily new. And the fact that people are framing it out like that is ridiculous. It's like, have you not been paying attention to what's been happening? I've used PlayStation as an example. PlayStation bought Gaikai back about 10 years ago. cloud. They've dipped their foot in cloud. PlayStation had a subscription service on PlayStation before Xbox did with Game Pass, with PlayStation Now. PlayStation they did release a television subscription service, the same vein of like a YouTube TV. It didn't do well. It didn't do well. And so they scrapped it. PlayStation app used to be on your Bravia TVs. My understanding that should be coming back at some point. PlayStation had dabbled in the portable in portable devices, handheld devices for gaming with the PSP and PlayStation Portal. Well, I say the PlayStation Portal is not on equal footing as the PSP and the Vita, but they had the PSP and Vita prior to the PlayStation Portal. Marlon says, "Rest in peace, Vita. I still love you." So this idea that they're trying to do different things, is it new? They've been doing this for years. For over a decade, they've been trying different things. Nintendo cannibalized its handheld business. And now Microsoft is trying something different because they haven't been able to gain market share in the console space. So what are they doing? They're leveraging their core competencies as an organization, which and align themselves with Microsoft's core competencies, which is software as a service, bringing our software to customers, to clients, not trying to sell them a piece of hardware and then sell them software after they buy that hardware. That's not what they're doing. That's not what Microsoft has done as a company. I understand they did Windows Phone and Zune and they have the tablet, but primarily their core competency has always been bringing software to wherever clients are. Let's stop giving some of these content creators who don't understand some of the basics in terms of how organizations operate and what's been happening in terms of change in the gaming industry. Let's not give those folks voices because they, frankly, don't deserve it. And I know you're probably thinking, BRAP, that's so harsh for you to say, but no, I'm just tired of it. I said this earlier, the democratization of information, of voices, hasn't been a net positive. It's only fueled misinformation and disinformation for people who just, for whatever reason, don't take the time to do their due diligence and research trends in gaming in the industry. There's a ton of information out there that you can research on your own. Google, you can do the Bing AI search using Copilot. I mean, there's so many different resources out there. Pay attention to NPD or Circana. Look at software sales. We talk about AAA games. If you cannot connect the dots, if you sit there and say, well, AAA games aren't sustainable, your next thought process should be, and this is the critical analysis, critical thought that's missing with a lot of content creators. Not all, but many that I've come across. If your next thought isn't, okay, well, if they're not sustainable, why are companies still making them? Why are they still investments in AAA? Why is that? That should be your next answer. But instead, you don't take it to that second step. You don't ask that next question. Probably because there's an agenda behind you saying AAA games aren't sustainable. And who knows, maybe in 10 years, 20 years, maybe they won't be sustainable. Maybe the market pivots and says, you know what? And maybe they hit an inflection point where the price of AAAs have gone up so much that the juice isn't worth the squeeze. And the market, the consumer market, pushes back and says, no, we're not doing this. And then there's a course correction. But if you're saying that AAA games are sustainable, the next question should be, well, then why are software developers publishers still making AAA games. Why is that? Because there's a demand signal by the market for AAA games. And if you don't believe me, look at Circana. Look at the top 20 games for Circana. Majority of them are AAA games. Look at the games that are consistently in Game of the Year conversations. The majority of them are going to be AAA games. Ryan Landis says, the popularity of these clowns has taught us that emotional adults don't want the truth. They want their bubble. And that's part of the problem, Ryan. That's part of the problem. But the bubble shouldn't be the loudest voices or the most popular voices. And that's what's happened. I mean, you literally have content creators say things like, Helldivers is a third-person cover shooter. No, it's not. It's not. If you play the game, you understand what a third-person cover-based shooter is, you would never come to that conclusion. What's up, world-renowned GeoHound? By the way, please smash that like button if you haven't done so already. It really helps out the channel. If you're new, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you're alerted when we go live. Again, we go live every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. If you're looking for a thoughtful, if you're looking for an insightful, well-thought-out podcast, you've come to the right place. We're not here pom-pomming corporations, pushing conspiracy theories, crying about the media. We're critical of the media and their coverage of gaming, but we're not going to sit here and cry about them and why don't they talk about PlayStation? Yeah, Rob, to your point about consoles getting cheaper, PlayStation's really hit they've hit a point where they aren't able to lower the cost of the console the way they have in previous years. And this is something Totoki talked about, because the cost of manufacture those consoles has increased. They haven't gotten cheaper. And then they're also getting impacted by the foreign exchange rate and some of the inflationary dynamics. And see, that's what I'm talking about. Like this conversation around manufacturing or cannibalization of hardware sales. Like none of that's ever fleshed out in some of these podcasts I listen to. It's like, well, it's great. Just, peanut butter all the PlayStation games everywhere. Consumers win. It's great. Look, it's a great utopian conversation. Games everywhere. Everyone's happy. But that's just not the reality of the world that we live in. Certainly, I certainly appreciate that perspective, I guess. Like, hey, games everywhere? Okay, it sounds great on paper. But if you're talking about putting games on day-and-date PC for PlayStation, they're exclusives, you're not asking yourself the potential cannibalization and the impact of that cannibalization to their hardware. You're not asking the right questions. You're stopping short, which should be the obvious next step, the next thought process. Well, how does that impact their business? If it's so great, why haven't they done it already? You try to find answers to those questions. And this is going to lead to a more informed conversation, a better conversation that we deserve and that you deserve as a listener. You spend a lot of your time listening to podcasts. I certainly appreciate the time you give me. It means a lot because it's time out of your day. It's time away from other things you could probably be doing. You deserve best. You deserve the best. You deserve to have conversations that are informed, that provide some critical analysis, some thought, that are more nuanced, that aren't based on emotions, that aren't based on trying to make one company look better than another. But at the same token, I guess there's people out there that want to be lied to and taken advantage of. monetarily. And when you and the irony of it is when people cry anti-consumer behavior, they're falling prey to being they're being preyed on by people who are behaving in an anti-consumer way, by lying, by manipulating people and their emotions to generate revenue for themselves. Let's talk about that. You want to talk about anti-consumer behavior? Not doing right for consumers? When people pay you money on a podcast and you lie and you spread misinformation, disinformation, and you manipulate their feelings to generate revenue to line your pockets, it's the most disingenuous thing. You can't speak to anti-consumer behavior if you're doing those things. You're anti-consumer yourself. Again, we deserve better. You deserve better. The conversation around gaming has just become very disappointing. And I want to tie something back to what I said about exclusivity. Gamers want exclusives. You don't believe me? Look at some of the exclusive AAA games that chart NPD Circana. Why do people want exclusives? Because there's a value proposition to them for buying exclusives. Exclusives are typically games that are best optimized for the platform they're created for. Because all the resources, time, development, expertise of that platform, that hardware, goes into making those video games. Which is why first-party AAA games, exclusive games, are some of the best looking, best optimized games. Optimization isn't always the case, but you get my point. And people see value in that. I think Logic mentioned this to me the other day when we were talking about exclusivity. He said that is a great ROI for, and I'm paraphrasing it, but something to the effect that that's a great ROI for a lot of people. Return of investment, that $500 investment. They're getting games where they get exclusive software, games that perform at high levels that the third parties won't get because they're developing for multiple SKUs. So there's value in that for consumers. And if you don't see value in that, fair. But don't be dismissive of the fact that other people see value in it. And the truth about Xbox first-party games, the reason why Microsoft is putting their first-party games on other platforms is because they need to. And why do they need to? Because they haven't been able to claw back enough market share to sell enough games in the console space. And so what they're doing is they're pivoting. They're incorporating their strengths as an organization, their core competencies as an organization, and applying that to their gaming business. By bringing their software to the players, to the consumers. That's what Microsoft does. If Microsoft was in a position that Sony was, do we think that they would be selling or bringing more of their first-party titles to rival platforms? It's a question that I don't see a lot of people asking. Who are applying Microsoft's strategy to the rest of the industry. The rest of the industry doesn't have the same problems as Xbox. There's a reason why they went day and date on PC, because they weren't selling enough software, because they were having issues selling hardware. You've heard PlayStation's strategy on bringing PC to their first-party games to PC. They look at it as not trading one sale for another sale, and that it just makes sense for them once they hit that maturation point where they're not going to recoup additional revenue on the platform, that it makes sense for them to release a game on PC and, get a couple extra dollars. Without potential cannibalization of their hardware, which further leads to the cannibalization of additional revenue generated by that hardware. Yeah, that's the point that people don't bring up when they discuss day and date on PC. Is the juice worth the squeeze for PlayStation to do that? Those are the kind of questions people should be asking. Those are the kind of questions that people should be asking and then seeking out information to get answers to those questions. And not from podcasters per se. Some you can, the ones that are informed. Again, the point of this rant was really to address a lot of the nonsense in content creation in the gaming space, where it's more tabloid driven, where it's just bottom of the barrel discussions around gaming. We have enough of that in life. Why are we adding that to an entertainment medium? Why? We demand better, you demand better. We start doing that, and hopefully we get better conversation pieces around video games. I sound like the old man in the podcasting space now. But I've been around that. Look, I've been doing this for almost 10 years, and I've seen the downward trajectory with the conversation around gaming. It's emotional. It's about giving people L's. It's about same energy. It's about all these things that are inconsequential to the industry, to your enjoyment of video games. Juice says, damn, I missed a surprise BRAP rant. I have to listen to the replay. Juice, I appreciate you coming by still. Morris to us says, in the end, we seek fun and enjoyment. And that's exactly what this should be. Fun and enjoyment. And if you're going to have a conversation around the business, apply some critical thought, analysis, ask questions. Don't stop at, Microsoft's doing it, so everyone else is going to do it. Well, no, why is Xbox doing this? Why isn't Sony and Nintendo doing this? Where do those three companies stand in the gaming space today? What are their motivations? Think about what I just said earlier today on Twitter. Companies are often motivated by different things. For some, this could be in the form of increasing their own market share. For others, it could be maximizing profits. Companies don't always view things in the same lens. A buddy of mine works for a financial institution, and he said to me, BRAP, I like where I work. We're not trying to play with the big boys. We're trying to be at a place where we just maintain profitability. We're not trying to increase or be aggressive in our capture of market share, but that's the philosophy of the owners. And I like working in this organization because of that, because it takes time. They take time to invest in people, to create operational efficiencies, which goes back to maximizing profits. My point in sharing that story is that companies are motivated by different things. And with the console space is a mature market. Doesn't mean that it's dying. It just means that Sony and Nintendo will find additional ways to squeeze more pennies out of their consumers. And yes, to an extent, they will seek additional revenue streams to grow their business, their overall business, by bringing more games to VR, to mobile, to PC. People like to bring up leaks. And they always seem to forget this one part of the leak. Where PlayStation's strategy around bringing games isn't games based on unification of hardware, because they cite different compute amongst the variety of hardware that's out there. Rather, creating games specific to the different compute that's out there. That's vastly different from what Microsoft's strategy is. And it's an important thing to note, because as I said earlier, I'll read it again. Companies are often motivated by different things. Companies don't always view things in the same lens. But yet we somehow, and many of these content creators who don't do enough research or critically think, assume that Nintendo, that PlayStation, that Tencent, that EA view things in the same lens. There's definitely some overlap, but they don't, again, always view things in the same lens because they're motivated by different things and have different objectives. And the reality is that the industry has been changing, and it's consistently changing. So anyone parading around the idea that this is somehow new is actually they're incorrect. They haven't been paying attention to the changes that have been happening in the gaming industry. VR, subscription services on consoles, the growth of mobile, those are changes. Cloud, those are changes. And it's interesting. The conversation around change seemingly only applies to PlayStation, but never does Nintendo. And Nintendo, out of all the big three in console gaming, is the most resistant to change. And yet they're the most successful in the industry. Well, I want to thank everyone for hanging out with me for about an hour or so. I really appreciate your time. As I said earlier, let's stop propping up these content creators who just don't do a good job at having good conversations around video games, who don't provide or give the nuance that's deserved to the conversation around the industry, growth, trends, who don't understand that consumers want exclusivity and that exclusives aren't anti-consumer, and also don't have this sense of entitlement that they deserve luxury items. Look, I'm not advocating for more expensive games, but I understand as a consumer, at the end of the day, if they choose to raise games, I have a choice to make. I either buy those games at retail or I'll wait for them to go on sale. Or I'll say, you know what, I'm going to take my business elsewhere. But let's demand better of content creators. Even better of media. I said this earlier. Media starting to blend a bit with, Logic said this, media starting to blend a little bit with tabloid media and blur the line with content creators. Let's stop propping up and giving views and money to these content creators who do nothing but spread misinformation, disinformation, who say they love gaming but don't do their homework and aren't students of the gaming industry. Ryan Landis says, media is jumping into the crumb side. I don't disagree, Ryan. I don't disagree. We need better podcasters. We need better content creators. There's only a few podcasts that I actually listen to. I could tell you one of my favorite would be, well, Last Stand Media, Sacred Symbols, Defining Duke, Punching Up. I enjoy listening to those shows because those shows provide a more nuanced conversation that's lacking. Broken Silicon would be another one that I listen to. And there's a couple others that I listen to as well. Let's prop those individuals up. Not those out there fear-mongering or or spreading misinformation, disinformation, or those who don't understand how businesses operate, or don't understand that the laws of economics also apply to the gaming industry. Those understand macroeconomics. And I'll leave it at that. But I want to thank everyone again for tuning in this afternoon. I really appreciate the support. Please hit that like button. Helps out the channel. If you're new, subscribe. Hit the bell notification so you're alerted when we go live. I'm a pure PC propaganda machine. Hey, I do love PC. That's my preferred platform. Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate it. But yes, hit that like button. Helps out the channel. If you're new, subscribe. Hit the bell notification so you are alerted when we go live. And we'll be back this Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time for our regular schedule BRAP. And until then, we'll see you next time. Thank you.